Okay, and what's your name, please?
My name is Matt Mauser.
Where are you from, Matt?
I'm from Huntington Beach, California.
How old are you?
I'm 51.
A wave of shocked silence hits the audience. The air in the theater becomes thick with a sudden, shared grief. This is the story of a man who turned an unthinkable loss into an unforgettable tribute, a moment that went way beyond a competition and reminded millions about the enduring power of love. The America's Got Talent stage is a place where people from all walks of life chase a dream. They come hoping for that $1 million prize and a headline show in Las Vegas. But every once in a while, a contestant walks out whose goal isn't fame or fortune. They're looking for something deeper, something more personal. They come seeking catharsis. They aren't there to win a contest, but to honor a memory and give a voice to a pain that words can't quite capture. That was the case for Matt Mauser, a 51-year-old musician from Huntington Beach, California. When he stepped into the spotlight, he wasn't just carrying a guitar. He was carrying the shattered pieces of his heart and a grief so public it had become part of the nation's collective memory. His story was tied to a tragedy that shocked the world, but his purpose that night was deeply intimate. He was there for an audience of 3, his children, watching from the wings. And for an audience of 1, the love of his life, who he believed was watching from somewhere beyond. His performance raised a question that gets to the core of our shared humanity. How do you find the strength to stand in a spotlight when your whole world has gone dark? How do you sing a love song when its meaning is now a source of endless pain? Matt Mauser's journey to that stage is a story of a love that death couldn't diminish and a melody of hope that refused to be silenced. Before his name was linked to a heartbreaking story of loss, Matt Mauser was known for bringing people joy. For years, he was the charismatic frontman of the Tijuana Dogs, a popular Southern California cover band. On stage, he was a force of nature, a dynamic performer who could get any crowd on its feet, helping them forget their troubles for a few hours. Music was his passion, his job, and his identity. He also fronted a Frank Sinatra tribute band, showing off a smoother, classic side of his talent. He and his wife, Christina, had built what seemed like a perfect life together. They had both been school teachers, but they made a pact to retire and chase their true passions. For Matt, that meant pouring all his energy into music. For Christina, a gifted athlete and brilliant coach, it meant taking an incredible opportunity, coaching a girls' basketball team alongside the legendary Kobe Bryant at his Mamba Sports Academy. Their life was a duet. His world was the stage and the lights, her world was the basketball court and the thrill of the game. They were true partners, supporting each other's dreams and celebrating each other's wins. He was her biggest fan, and she was his. Their love story actually began where his musical story was being written, on the stage. It was a life Matt himself would later call a dreamy kind of life, full of love, laughter, their children, and the two of them chasing their callings, side by side. Every great love story has a beginning. For Matt and Christina Mauser, that moment happened in a dive bar back in 2004. Matt was on stage doing what he loved, and Christina was in the audience, totally captivated. She was already a fan of his band, but a different kind of spark flew between the stage and the crowd that night. That first encounter grew into a romance and a marriage that lasted 15 years. Their bond was built on shared values and unwavering support. Friends and family described them as best friends who were great at being parents and partners. Together, they were raising their 3 children, a daughter, Penny, and 2 sons, Tom and Ivy. Their home was filled with the beautiful chaos of family life, a symphony of school runs, band practices, and basketball games. Christina was the anchor of the family. While Matt was the performer, she was the steady, grounding force. In an interview, Matt later reflected on her influence. "She kept me grounded," he said, "never let me get too high, and never let me get too low." She was the person who knew him better than anyone else in the world. He admired her strength, her humility, and her quiet power. She was, as he put it, a humble, powerful, beautiful human being. Their life was proof their pact had worked. He thrived as a musician because she believed in him. She thrived as a coach, earning the respect of one of the greatest athletes in history, because he supported her. It was a partnership built on love, sacrifice, and the belief that the other's happiness was just as important as their own. And it was this deep connection that made the events of January 26, 2020, not just a tragedy, but the shattering of a perfect harmony. The morning of January 26, 2020, started like any other Sunday in Southern California, with a thick, hazy fog hanging in the air. Christina Mauser was getting ready to head to a youth basketball tournament at the Mamba Sports Academy. As an assistant coach, she was traveling with Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gianna, and several others. Before she left, she shared one last, simple moment with her husband that would be seared into his memory forever. She kissed him goodbye. "She kissed me and she said, 'I love you,'" Matt would later recall. "And that was the last thing my wife ever said to me." In an instant, everything changed. The helicopter, carrying 9 people, disappeared into the fog and crashed into a Calabasas hillside. There were no survivors. News of the crash spread across the globe. The world mourned the loss of a global icon in Kobe Bryant, but for Matt Mauser, this public tragedy was a private apocalypse. His wife, his partner, the mother of his children, was gone. "Your whole life changes in a second," he said. It was pain. In the middle of this nightmare, there was a detail that's both a blessing and a haunting what if. Their daughter, Penny, was supposed to be on that helicopter. But that morning, she decided to stay home to prepare for a performance and record a song with her dad. That simple decision saved her life, a moment of grace in an ocean of grief. While the world's attention was fixed on the celebrity of the crash, Matt was at home facing a new reality. He was no longer just a husband and a musician. He was a widower and a single father. His first thought wasn't about himself, but about his kids. How do you tell your children that their mother is never coming home? The first question that cut through his shock was one of pure survival. How am I going to take care of my children? The dreamy life they had built together had vanished in the FOGE.in the aftermath. Matt Mauser's world went quiet. The vibrant, music-filled life he knew was gone, replaced by a suffocating grief. For about a month, he could barely get out of bed. The music had faded, and all that was left was the echo of his loss. He was trying to be the rock for his 3 devastated children. "My focus immediately went to my children," he explained. "You start to say, all right, she would want me to carry on. She would want our kids to have happy lives, which I don't know if it's possible, but I'm going to try." Just as he was starting to grapple with this, the world shut down. The COVID-19 pandemic hit, isolating them and making their grief even heavier. There were no more live shows, no outlets for his music, and no distractions from the pain. It was just him and his kids, alone with their sorrow. During this time, Matt turned to 2 things, swimming and music. He'd been a collegiate swimmer, and now the pool became his sanctuary. He went every day, and the rhythmic motion of swimming became a kind of therapy. The physical effort was a release, a way to channel the anger and pain and stay strong for his kids, and then there was the music. For a long time, he couldn't perform, the joy was gone. But slowly, music started to come back, not as a performance, but as a way to speak his grief. He wrote an original song called "Lost," a raw, honest look at his feelings. Music, which had been the soundtrack to his love story with Christina, was now the only way he could begin to talk about his heartbreak. It was the only way he could speak to her in the silence she'd left behind. After a year of private mourning, Matt started to feel a shift. He said he couldn't sit still anymore and had to do something. The idea of auditioning for America's Got Talent came up. It was a risk, and a terrifyingly public step forward. But he wasn't doing it for a record deal or to get back in the limelight. His motivation was centered on the 3 people who depended on him for everything. "The main reason I did it is I want to make sure," that my kids saw me do something instead of just being sad," he explained. For a year, their lives had been defined by loss. Matt knew he needed to show Penny, Tom, and Ivy that their story wasn't over. He wanted them to see their father not just as a man consumed by sorrow, but as someone who could still be brave and chase a dream. "I would like to make sure that my children see that in spite of the grief that we've been through this year, that grief is not going to define who we are as a family," he said. "My children see that you have to find joy in life and you have to continue." With that purpose in his heart, he had to decide what to sing. The choice was immediate and deeply personal. Against All Odds, Take a Look at Me Now, by Phil Collins. It was one of Christina's favorite songs, but now, the lyrics had a new, heartbreaking meaning. It was no longer just a power ballad, it was a mirror of his life that he pointed to one set of lyrics that hit home. "There's so much I need to say to you / so many reasons why / you're the only one who really knew me at all." "That's so true," Matt said. "When you lose that sounding board, you just have to, against all odds, find a way back." The song's iconic chorus was now his reality. "Take a look at me now, well there's just an empty space, and you coming back to me is against the odds, and that's what I've got to face." He was about to walk onto one of the world's biggest stages to have a conversation with his late wife, with the whole world listening in. The moment Matt Mauser walked onto the AGT stage, a quiet dignity filled the room. He stood before the judges, Simon Cowell, Howie Mandel, Heidi Klum, and Sofia Vergara, carrying an invisible weight. He introduced himself, his voice calm. When Simon asked why he was there, he began to tell his story. He spoke of his life with Christina, of their pact that let him pursue music while she coached basketball with Kobe Bryant. As he said the name, Kobe Bryant, a murmur went through the room. And then, he said the words that stopped everyone's heart. "On January 26 of 2020, I lost my wife in the same helicopter crash that killed Kobe Bryant." The judges' faces fell. Sofia Vergara's hands flew to her mouth. Simon Cowell, known for being tough, was visibly stunned and softened. The energy in the room shifted from an excited TV taping to a space of profound empathy. "I would have my wife and I'd be supporting her, but that's not what happened," Matt continued, his voice heavy but steady. "It's been a rough year, but here I am." Simon gently asked if his children were there. Matt's face lit up for the first time as he pointed to the side of the stage. "Yeah, they're right here." The camera cut to Penny, Tom, and Ivy, watching their dad with pride, love, and the sadness that had become part of their lives. Seeing them made Matt's purpose crystal clear. He was doing this for them. There were no more questions. There was only the song. As Matt prepared himself, the audience and judges waited, holding their breath. This wasn't an audition anymore. It was a eulogy. The opening notes of "Against All Odds" filled the theater. Matt stood at the microphone, his eyes closed. This was more than a song, it was a conversation. As one person later wrote on YouTube, he didn't sing. He spoke to his wife through the song. He made it very personal for him, and I felt that. From the first line, his voice was filled with a raw emotion that you can't learn. It was the sound of a man singing from the bottom of his soul. When he sang, "How can I just let you walk away, just let you leave without a trace," it felt like a direct question to the heavens. The camera panned across the audience, showing faces streaked with tears. Strangers were weeping openly, not out of pity, but because they felt his love and his courage. The judges were completely captivated. Howie Mandel and Sofia Vergara were visibly emotional, their faces etched with sorrow. As he hit the song's powerful chorus, his voice soared. "So take a look at me now, 'cause there's just an empty space." He motioned to the space beside him, a simple, devastating gesture that said it all. "And you coming back to me is against the odds, and that's what I've got to face." The climax was almost unbearable. As he neared the final line, "Take a look at me now," his voice, which had been so strong, finally cracked. He choked up, overcome by the weight of the last year and a half. He fought through it, delivering the last note with a quiet, heartbreaking finality. The song ended. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then, it was shattered by an explosion of applause. Every single person in the theater, including all 4 judges, was on their feet, giving him a standing ovation not just for his talent, but for his breathtaking courage. He had turned his grief into art and created one of the most unforgettable moments in the show's history. As the applause continued, Matt stood on stage, tears streaming down his face. The judges remained on their feet, clapping with looks of awe and deep respect. When the crowd finally settled, the judges shared their thoughts. "We felt your emotion," Howie Mandel said gently. "And if you're able to move strangers and we can feel it in our hearts, there aren't words to describe it." Heidi Klum added, "There was just a different kind of vibe in your voice. When you were singing it, it definitely went inside of me. It was beautiful, it was sad, it was very special." Sofia Vergara, who had been emotional from the start, simply said, "It was very touching. Thank you for being here." Then it was Simon Cowell's turn. He paused and asked, "What would you like to see happen if you did well on AGT?" Matt took a moment. His children were now being brought onto the stage to stand with him. "I would like to make sure that my children see that in spite of the grief that we've been through this year, that grief is not going to define who we are as a family," he said. "And that my children see that you have to find joy in life and you have to continue. If this can in any way help my children to chase their dreams, then I'll take it." The answer hung in the air, perfectly summing up his purpose. Howie Mandel looked at Matt and his children and delivered the final validation. "You know something, your wife is always here," he said, pointing to the family. "That is her legacy. You are her legacy. This moment is her legacy." The vote was just a formality. It was a resounding yes from all 4 judges. As Matt hugged his children on stage, it was clear he'd already won. He had shown them, and the world, that even after the most devastating loss, the human spirit can find a way to sing again. Matt's story is such a powerful reminder of how love and grief are intertwined, and how music can give a voice to our deepest emotions. What part of his journey moved you the most? Was it his love story, his courage on stage, or his reason for auditioning? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in the power of music to heal, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. Matt Mauser's audition went viral, touching millions around the world. His story resonated because it was a pure display of love in the face of a public tragedy. But for Matt, the journey was far from over. He advanced in the competition and was later brought back as a wild card for the quarterfinals. This time, he chose Frank Sinatra's "The Way You Look Tonight," explaining it was the last song he and Christina ever danced to together. Though he was eliminated after that round, his impact was undeniable. His goal was never to win the prize, it was to honor his wife and teach his children a lesson in courage. That lesson went far beyond the AGT stage. Matt established the Christina Mauser Foundation to honor her passion for sports by supporting women and girls through scholarships and financial aid. It was a way to keep her spirit alive and turn their family's pain into something positive. He even pledged that if he had won the $1 million prize, 100% of it would have gone to the foundation. Today, the foundation continues its work, helping deserving female athletes chase their dreams, just like Christina did. Matt continues to perform with his bands and, most importantly, continues to be a devoted father. He took the darkest moment of his life and used it to shine a light, ensuring that Christina's name would forever be linked with strength, empowerment, and love. Matt Mauser's journey on America's Got Talent came full circle. It started with a love story that began in a bar where he was singing, and it ended on a stage where he sang to honor that same love. He walked into his audition as a man defined by a tragedy the world knew. He walked off as a man defined by a love the world could feel. His performance showed that the deepest grief comes from the deepest love. He didn't just sing a song, he laid his heart bare for everyone to see. In doing so, he gave millions of people permission to connect with their own stories of loss and resilience, that he wanted to show his children that grief didn't have to define them. In the end, he showed the world. He proved that it's possible to stand in an empty space, acknowledge the void, and fill it not with despair, but with a melody of hope. Matt Mauser came to sing a song for his wife, but he ended up singing for everyone who has ever loved and lost, leaving us with the unbreakable promise that love, like music, never really dies.